Listen to the whisper. Listen to the whisper that you hear in your heart. It's my belief and experience that it is never wrong. And if you pursue that over your mind and your thoughts and the voices coming from the outside, it's going to lead you to a life you don't even recognize, like your wildest dreams.
Welcoming Moira Kucaba, an elite fitness and business coach, self-taught CEO, best-selling author, speaker, mom, belief builder, and addiction overcomer, helping others pave their way to success. For the last 25 years, Moira has obsessively studied ancient teachings, current-day thought leaders, and everything in between. Her signature VPM method combines manifestation techniques rooted in neuroscience and actionable goals. She takes the woo out of manifesting and combines ancient tools with neuroscience-backed strategies. As a struggling addict turned seven-figure CEO, she is here to show you how to turn your failures into success. Through the power of vision, manifestation, and solid dose of accountability, she has accomplished more in 365 days than she has in her entire life, and she became #1 coach of a $350 million company. Today, she teaches people how to 10x their lives and transform their minds through her courses, speaking engagement, and coaching business. Okay, I have the honor on welcoming on the beautiful Moira. I said it right, Moira. Yes. I love your
Yes.
name. It's so unique and
Thank you.
beautiful. And I just want to make sure I pronounced it right. But I have
Yeah.
the honor of welcoming on Moira onto the show. I'm so happy to connect again. We originally met at the Amberly Lagos Mastermind, The Unstoppable Life. And just instantly, I just felt this connection with you, that you were just such a welcoming presence in the room, and you just welcomed everybody with open arms to connect and just get to know you on a personal level. And it was just an honor to share the time and space with you, and now to have you on my show. So thank you. Welcome.
Thanks. I felt the exact same way about you, instant connection, like such good vibes. And it's such an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for welcoming me on your podcast show as
Yes.
well. I can't wait to hear or have everybody listen to that episode as well. And depending when this comes out and when yours comes out, I'll plug it into the show notes just so everybody can kind of go in your space and hear your podcast, because I know you interview so many like-minded leaders that are really showing up and making a massive impact in their lives and in the world. So I would love people to, it's called I don't want to
Low
pronounce
bottom,
it.
high rise. So
Awesome.
It's kind of all about like that transition. I love to hear people's stories of, I've never really used the word triumph, but that's kind of what it is. It's like the real, people that can get vulnerable about what it's really like out there, whether that's in life or in business. And we all struggle, we all fail, we all have these hard seasons. And it's like, I'm so curious for myself, but also for all the women that I coach, like, what is the process to get through that? Like, how did you overcome that? How did you, just get to that next level through that struggle? So that's kind of what it's all about.
And that's what we're going to go in today with your story, which I can't wait to dig deeper into. So I did an intro at the top of the episode and get a little look into who Moira is. And now I want to hear from you. If you could kind of go deeper into your story to kind of unravel, maybe to start at, based on, there's so many facets of your journey, but maybe to touch on or start with what led you into moving into network marketing, which you joined Beachbody. What was that transition, and what was the catalyst to that transition and saying yes to that type of opportunity?
Yeah, because I still feel very strongly about, like, I'm never going to be that girl, right? I'm never going to be that girl that's like trying to get her friends to do something or buy something. And so, I mean, gosh, the story goes so far back. So let me just take you all the way back, if you don't mind.
Sure, yes.
But I'll do the really quick version of it. So, I grew up in a really just like very middle class, normal as normal can be. I mean, nothing's normal actually, but my upbringing was I was the youngest of six kids. So I was like, younger kids always seem to try to like play catch up with their older brothers and sisters. So I was always a little, I don't want to say ahead of my times, but like my friends were older and I kind of progressed at a faster rate, but also I had to keep up with five brothers and sisters. So I
Mm.
was ended up being like really good at sports and things like that. So I was the star athlete. I was really good academically, and type A, now I know I'm an Enneagram 3 and like all the disc profile and all that stuff. I'm just like that perfectionist personality. I think I was just born that way. And so I had this childhood of success, and I mean, of course, it feels good to be really good at a lot of things. And it wasn't until high school that I really felt, I was just telling somebody this story last night, that I started to feel the pressure of that. It was like not so easy to just be the best at everything. And addiction ran in my family, not close to home, but like I knew, my parents kind of always told us stories, but we didn't really talk about it that much back then. But I knew addiction ran in my family. Never in a million years would I have thought that I was an addict. But looking back, I'm like, well, I kind of was addicted to everything I ever did. And I don't want to say addicted because I don't think I was born an alcoholic or an addict. I really don't buy into that philosophy. That took me decades to rewrite that story. But I
Yeah.
do believe that I was born with some genetics that make me super driven, like kind of just driven. I mean, that's the word for it. It's like anything I do to the extreme. We have labeled that addiction or addict or alcoholic this day and age. But I think that's kind of a disservice to, my population, that population. And so when I took my first drink, I was like, oh, I can finally relax, It took the pressure off of me, and I took it and ran, just like I did with every single other thing in my life. And by the time I was 21, I was at like rock bottom. When I say rock bottom, like I would wake up and drink. There wasn't an hour of my waking hours where I wasn't using. And
Wow.
so I was really at that point, very suicidal, very, because here I was like, s- I was supposed to go to like an Ivy League med school, and I was like dropped out of college. I was just, living this terrible life. And I didn't really see a way out of it. It was a really painful time in my life. And so therefore, suicide, that's where your thoughts go. That's a whole that's a whole nother show.
Of course.
But I ended up getting sober in Southern California when I was 21 years old. So I started this journey of kind of almost like self-discovery a lot
Mm.
younger than most people. Somewhat of well, not even somewhat, a spiritual journey, doing kind of personal growth work, right? And I was always, like I said, driven. I think that personality type lends itself to entrepreneurship. So I decided, and there's such a huge piece here I want to highlight. I was going to go back and like pursue my dreams to go to med school. And I had a sales job in Southern California, and I had walked into a Pilates studio. No idea what Pilates was. I'd like heard the word, and I felt like this knowing in my soul that I was like, I need to do this. And
Mm.
I was at the time I was working like 50, 60 hours a week with my sales job. I didn't have any time. I had no money. But I was like, I need to pursue this. And I remember calling my brother, and he was like, have you even taken a class yet? And I
That's a
was
good
like, no.
question.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But I have always, like, since I got sober, really listened to that inner whisper that in your mind, when you think about it logically, you're like, this is insane. I've never taken a class. Where am I going to find the money to do it? Where am I going to find the time? Like, it doesn't make any sense. But I've always pursued that heart calling.
Mm.
So I ended up doing it logically. I was like, I could do this and it would give me more income and more time freedom to go back to med school. And so that's why I initially pursued it. And it ended up being my career for like 17 years. So I ended up opening up multiple studios and having, a bunch of employees, which really kind of stoked the entrepreneurial fire for me. I learned how to build a business and figured all that out. And then I had gotten married and had kids. I had kind of done everything I could do with my studio. And when you're an entrepreneur and you tap out on something, like you're just kind of miserable, you're like, I
Like,
need
what's
something
next?
else.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. What's next?
Yeah.
So I opened up a cold pressed juice company. No idea how to press juice, no idea how to do any of that. But I was like super passionate about nutrition, wanting to impact women's lives or people's lives, I should say. And that was the hardest business I've ever, I can't even, it was super fun because again, it's like brand new for an entrepreneur. You're like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to build a brand. I'm going to figure out the marketing. We're going to open up brick and mortar. We're going to go national. We're going to figure out how to, I had really big dreams and it was a super successful business on the outside.
Mhm.
And a lot of businesses can look and be profitable on the outside, but when you're paying back huge loans and, you're working morning, noon, and night, it can also just run you into the ground. And that's what that business did at a time when I was married and had two little toddlers. And so it took its toll on my marriage and on my family. And, we never know the toll it takes until we look back. But when a mama is literally just broken on a soul level and completely physically burned out, nobody's happy. It does not
Yeah.
make for a happy home. And I had stumbled into a girl in Southern California who I really admired from an entrepreneurial aspect, and she was in health and wellness, and I just thought she was like so awesome. And she invited me into a kind of a health mindset, fitness, nutrition group that she was coaching. And I was like, absolutely, because I'm falling apart.
Yeah.
And it was Beachbody. And I say it was Beachbody because those were the nutrition pieces that she used and the fitness pieces, but she was what made it so magical,
Mhm.
And it changed my life. I found solutions because the piece that the big gap in there is when I put down alcohol, I picked up an eating disorder. And so I struggled with disordered eating for, 15 years as I'm in the health and wellness world. And trust me, so many people that go into that profession it's like so many therapists become therapists because they're struggling with their own stuff. So many
Yep.
people in health and wellness go into that field because they're trying to figure out their own stuff. So, so it set me free. It gave me solutions that I had desperately sought for 15 years, and it set me free in a lot of ways. And she kept inviting me into the business. And I was like, oh, no, no, no. I will never do anything like that. I will never do network marketing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to try to sell you. And I will shop and buy things from my friends all day long, but I will never be the person that's trying to get you to buy my jewelry or my oils or my whatever it is. But this was different because it was coaching. It was coaching women through, better habits, better practices, self-limiting beliefs, the nutrition piece and the fitness piece, which I was passionate about. And so it took me a really long time to break through those walls that I had up. But really what I saw was, I always say my plane was going down in flames, with the juice business. And she was stepping into entrepreneurship and travel and income and impact and a collective of women. And I was like, that is everything I've ever wanted. That's everything I'm over here trying to create all alone.
Yeah.
And so I finally very begrudgingly said yes. And again, when I say yes, when I finally make the decision, I'm ready to go, Yeah. So
That's
I went
literally
all
what happened,
in.
but yeah.
Yeah. I went all in because that's just how I do everything. And I set out to do it differently too. I was like, there's a lot of people that give anything a bad name. And I think you can never let people doing something badly dictate whether or not you're going to do something, because you have an opportunity to do things your way. And I knew I wanted to do it with integrity and class and just a whole different vibe. And, I became the number 5 coach in like less than 2 years. And then I became the number 1 coach, out of 400,000, which is crazy. It's crazy to say.
Ludicrous.
Ludicrous. Yes.
Yes.
And what I also want to say was that it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Like,
Mm,
it wasn't easy. I think, and again, just pulling any entrepreneur, like pulling that into this, anytime you want to succeed as an entrepreneur, there's an immense amount of personal growth that goes along with that. I think it's John Maxwell that calls the law of the lid. Like, your business will only grow as much as you grow. And so, yes, I hustled my face off and I worked really hard, and I am a little anti hustle culture because I'm like, if you ask any radically successful person, there was a season of extreme sacrifice. There was a season of grind. There was a season of late nights and early mornings. And I think we are in a day in our society where people just want the easy road. And so they're grabbing onto this anti hustle culture. And I'm like, if you got big dreams, you're going to have to hustle.
yeah, it doesn't
So,
come easy. No.
no, no, not at all. And so I worked really hard, but for anyone listening, I worked harder on myself than anything. And that's really
Mm,
truly what led me to success. Because when you're
mm,
leading a team or you're trying to create impact, the only way you're going to do that on a massive level is if you massively change yourself, you know?
mm,
So that was really, I mean, it's truly what I attribute my success to is being able to learn from all these incredible thought leaders that are in our world today and past. And it's not like they're my best friend sitting on my front porch with me. We have the opportunity to learn from them through books and podcasts and live seminars and immersion seminars and everything. So that was a really long answer to your question, and I feel like I'm like, I want you
mm.
to talk too, Erica.
Yeah.
But that's the
That's
path. That's the path. Is it's the personal path is also the path to success in business for sure.
And there you go. Well, let's unpack some of that. So, for
Yeah.
anybody listening that really let's kind of bring it back to before that transition. So, let's say somebody has a passion on their heart, but
Mhm.
to make that big jump into something and to do it successfully, you need to fully commit and you need to just
Mhm.
go right into that. But a lot of people are held back by the fear of this risk of, let's say,
Mhm.
if I put my attention to this, then I'm diluting my intention to this. And then what do I do? Do I say goodbye to this completely and jump in the deep end and just take that risk and plunge and into the unknown of creating success in something I'm super passionate about? So how did you develop the confidence
Mm.
to move forward in faith over fear
Yeah,
of
such
the
a great
unknown?
question. I think it's different for everybody. Everybody can approach it differently, but I remember so clearly, like one of the first, just one of my best friends that I like brought into the coaching thing, and it really changed her life and her marriage and her family. And it was that first life that I had impacted. Like, every life you impact gives you that confidence to go forward. And I was very much like in the closet, wasn't going to come out doing this thing. And I remember coming back to my house after I ran into her at my kids' school, and I just sat there with like one of those moments. And like, our destiny is shaped in those moments of like decision. And I just remember thinking, I can sit here and do what I've been doing for my whole life and not take action and make a decision. And that is all going to be based on the fear. For me, it was the fear of what other people were going to say about me.
Mm,
For some people, it's the fear of just failure. And I thought it's like I saw the fork in the road. I can just keep doing what I'm doing, which is a pretty miserable existence. And I feel like we're not willing to admit that sometimes, but I was willing to admit it to myself that day. Or I could take a chance. I could take a chance on, my biggest dreams, my biggest impact, my biggest goals. And I just remember feeling like if I was talking to a friend, I would be shaking them to be the person that takes the leap of faith, and that I never wanted to be the person that looked back and regretted it. And so in that, you have to take action. And when I say it can be different for everybody, for me, my kids were actually, and this is going into a little of the details behind it, but like my kids, the next week was the only week of summer that they happened to be in like a 9 to 3 camp. And so I remember saying to myself, I am going to move everything off my schedule next week, and I am going to show up to this coaching job like it's an actual job. Like someone
Mm.
is hiring me today and saying, we're going to pay you $100,000. You start Monday at 9 a.m. And I had to make that mental shift to, and I coach women through this a lot of times. I'm like, you're never going to make a 6-figure income if you don't currently work like you're making a 6-figure income. You can't work like you're making $10,000 and get to $100,000. You have to work at that level for a while to get there. And so I made a decision, and then my kids were not in camp, so then it was like, crap, now what am I going to do? But I made commitments. I made serious commitments. I talked to my husband. I was like, I'm going to be on calls on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights for an hour. Like, I think that's the thing that we do is we think we're making a decision, but it's just this like little internal thing.
Mhm.
And we have to commit to other people. I remember that night actually calling my mentor and saying, like, I've made a decision. I am in. This is what I'm going to do. So, like, I committed to her. I talked to my husband. And whether that's I'm going to show up like I'm working a full-time job, which I only was able to do for a week, or I'm going to carve out an hour every single day. And I want my girlfriends or my spouse or whoever it is to be in on that, so they know that that's important to me and I'm committing to this action. But you have to make commitments with your time and your schedule, and you can't just commit to yourself, because we will always let ourselves down. Always.
Oh, so good. That is so, so valuable. What you just shared is acting like as if this is a job, like your passion that you're pursuing, this side
Mhm.
hustle, that to act accordingly like it is your job, like you are committed and you're making the time and you're putting it out there. I always talk about like one of the fastest ways to build confidence is what you say you're going to do, you do it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
committing and making the time and staying committed to what is necessary. Like for example, I have to I have to schedule podcast recordings in advance with other people,
Yeah.
and I put in my book, and sometimes I won't know a month ahead, oh, I might want to go on a travel or something else might come
Mhm.
up. But it has happened many times where because that's in my calendar, and
Yeah.
let's say a travel comes up, and travel is my most favorite thing to do
Mhm.
on the planet. And a travel come up, and I will not cancel.
Yeah.
I treat it as it's a job. It's something I'm committed to. I also committed to another person, as you're talking about,
Mhm.
like share it with others. So that's how I treat it as well. As it's something that helps me build confidence because I'm keeping my word to myself and in my
Right.
commitments. So I
Yeah.
think that's so important, that I think people need to ask yourself this question: the passion or the thing you're pursuing, this side hustle, are you treating it like you would be treating it if you were getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars
Right.
to accomplish your tasks? Perfect.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
I always
Amazing.
love to ask people, and it's kind of a wake up call, like, are you interested in this or are you committed?
There you
Because there's
go.
a huge difference between being interested in, your side hustle that you'll talk about, and that this is my passion. And I'm like, well, you're interested in it because you're dabbling in it. You're not treating it like you would. I was actually talking to I just held a retreat last week, and I was like, think about this, you guys. And I'm talking to a room full of mostly moms. And I'm like, so often whenever it comes to a side hustle, people are like, well, I've taken my foot off the gas because I'm just going through some tough stuff, or I'm going through things with my kids. And I'm like, does my husband not go to the office on Monday morning because he's like struggling with some stuff, or because our child is struggling with some stuff? Like, that's not an option. Like, he goes to the office, unless it's extreme and somebody's having surgery and we need to be at the hospital. But like, it's not an option for me to not show up for my business because I'm feeling anxious about something in my life, or and we just don't treat it the same. So it's like,
Mm.
for those of us that are married, like, kind of use that as your gauge. Like, would your husband not be showing up to work his business over the same matter? Because until you treat it the same, it's not going to build.
Yeah, I do think it's a mindset shift. So,
Yeah.
talking about the hustle culture and burnout,
Mhm.
especially women entrepreneurs, and I think the reason why we generally will get burnt out more than men is we're just wired differently.
Mm.
Our feminine essence of ourself is more flow and like
Yeah.
peace and like all these things. So, I'm just curious because I know when I'm about to get burnt out and I need to
Yeah.
honor that space I need, or
Mhm.
that break to just be, because I'm always in the doing. So what would you say in those beginning stages of entrepreneurship? How do you help the people you coach, how do you help them handle that possible burnout, or that feeling of just hustle, hustle, hustle? Uh,
Yeah.
how could they have a better relationship with, and maybe be able to have like synergy and balance between the both?
Yeah, it's so many facets to this. So I actually have a planner called the Rise Up Planner because I was horrible at time management. And so I also talk to a lot of people at that because I think it's people's biggest story. Well, I don't have the time, or I'm really bad at
Course.
managing my time. And I'm like, well, then change it. Like, I was terrible at managing my time, so I figured out how to get really good at it. So managing your time, sitting down on a Sunday and planning your week out, not just the dentist appointments and the doctor's appointments, but setting up your week, time blocking your days. Because I am so good at time management, that when I'm working my business, that when I'm not working my business, I don't have to work my business.
Mm,
When I pick up my kids at 3 o'clock, and I wasn't like this in the beginning, and I experienced a lot of burnout because I was working at 24/7, because I wasn't managing the tasks during the day when my kids were at school. It bled into, every waking hour. And I always recognized, if I could just get better at getting shit done, then I wouldn't have the to-do list at 3 o'clock when I pick them up. One of the other things that helped me immensely, because I used to hear people be like, well, you have to set working hours. And I'm like, okay, but I kind of want to work 24/7 too. Like, I love this, right? And so I had to set non-working hours. And so that was so much more achievable than, because so many of our passions, like, are just, we can sit on the couch at night, or we can watch something, or we can read something. Like, it's bleeding into everything. And so I had to set non-working hours where I was like, my phone is down, my computer is closed, I'm fully present to my husband, I'm fully present to my children, and giving myself, even if it was like 2 hours, after I got the kids from practice and before bed, like, fully present, made me feel so incredibly good as a mother. And then allowed me the permission to, put the kids to bed and get back to working on some nights. And for me, because I know a lot of people step away from their passion because they feel like they are
guilt.
sacrificing too much time with their children. I mean, I am 10 million times a better mother because I pursued my heart, because
Mm,
I did the thing that I was called to, because they have seen me get up early, because they have seen me shoot for goals, because they have seen me stay up late. They know what hard work is, they know what sacrifice is. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I could have taught them by example, versus feeling the guilt of having to be with them every single second, you know? They are just growing into amazing children. And I recognize so much of it is because I have given myself permission to live out my own dreams. And when we think about that as a mom and we don't pursue our own dreams, we are teaching them by example not to chase theirs. Like, that's a wake up call.
Beautifully said. I completely agree. I'm not a parent yet, but I completely agree. It's like, how did children learn? They learn by example, not what you
Yeah.
say you're going to do. It's by what you do. And so it's
Yeah.
beautiful. You're teaching them life lessons that they will never learn in school, of that hard work, drive, commitment, disciplined. Like, those are attributes that are built with practice and everything. And
Yeah.
so talking about that, if we could bring you back to, so you, as you mentioned, you've actually been top one or two, the top two or top one out of your whole
Top.
top
I was
one.
the top
Like,
one. Yeah.
that sounds weird. Top one, the first in the whole entire company
Yeah.
in Beachbody out of over 400,000 people. Like, I can't even believe I'm in the presence of you.
Oh,
like,
stop.
like that's ridiculous. And you're just obviously is so just human and real and honest and transparent and sharing, your wisdom of how you got there. So I think it's just like, bow down to you. That's just awesome, because
Oh,
it just shows,
thank you.
number one, I know you don't do this just for the success of bringing in more revenue. I know you do it because you're wanting to make the impact, which that I really admire and appreciate about you, because you do it because your heart is in it.
Yeah.
So that's beautiful. And I think that is one element that, to
Yes.
really create massive success, you have to be giving back to something bigger than yourself.
Yes.
It can't be selfish, because that only goes so far. So that's beautiful. But if we were to go when you were just starting off in the first year, I know the first year, first 2 years, that's where you like skyrocketed really, really rapidly. So I would love to know, like, what were some core elements, principles, systems you put into place to actually make that happen so rapidly, if you could name maybe 3 or 4
Yeah.
systems or rituals,
Yes. I love
habits,
systems and
whichever.
rituals and habits. So I think it was a relentless work ethic. And the only way you have a relentless work ethic is when it's backed by a true heart to serve. Like, I had this insane drive and passion, and still do, to impact women's lives. So I led with that, and that energy is infectious. And like, just so much, especially in coaching, I feel like, when people are sitting there like doing, I'm following directions, I'm doing the work, I'm doing what you're telling me to do, but you're like doing it begrudgingly, or you're doing it kind of from a scorekeeping place of like, well, I talked to this many people and this many people said no. I'm like, I was just so focused on the people that said yes. And like,
There you go.
yeah. So it's like, I remember reading, oh gosh, The Go-Giver by Bob Berg. And he said this quote, and I always get it mixed up, but it's, your true worth it's like, your true worth is not based on your income. Your true worth is measured by how much more you give, than you receive in payment. And I remember having that, like, it feels like your brain changes sometimes when like a fundamental core belief changes. And I was like, oh, so it's not about this exchange of me giving this and then receiving this in payment. It's this, if I make the shift, which I did very early on, of just relentlessly pursuing transforming lives, like, the success will come. And so I came to believe that early on. And of course, I believe that today. And so that was there. And because of that relentless work ethic. But I do know that one thing, and it's funny because I just published a new journal this year, and it all came from like a practice that I fell into in the very beginning. And that was writing out my vision, right? Which somebody probably somewhere in the coaching world was like, you should write your vision out. You should write your goals out. We hear that all the time.
Yeah.
And one night I had, followed directions and written out, and I teach on this a lot. Like, don't overthink it. Just put pen to paper, stream of consciousness. Like, you can't do it wrong. And again, like, I always just took action. I'm not the type of person that gets caught in overthinking. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this exercise and write down my vision. And I slipped it into a book that was next to my bed. And the next morning I woke up, and it was my habit to read for 10 minutes before I would go do my workout in the morning, before my kids woke up. And so I fell into that habit of, when I opened up the book the next day, that vision was there, and I like read it because I was like, oh yeah, I already forgot about this,
Wow.
like, and it lit my fire. And so when I sit down after I drop my kids off at school and I don't want to do the work, or I don't want to post on social media, or I don't want to record the podcast, it's like there is this grand, like, the vision is so much bigger than the work.
Hmm.
And so I fell into that habit, and it's something I teach to everybody. It's like, you can't do a vision board. I love vision boards. I love all that stuff. But like, you can't do a vision board on January 1st and like stick it in your closet and not really look at it. Like, you have to adopt a practice where you read it every single day. And so I still do that 7 years later, whether I'm
Wow.
traveling, whether I'm, speaking at an event, running a workshop. I will read my vision and goals every single morning, because I have to keep like my eye on that. I have to remember the why behind it. And then the other practice that I fell into, and this is in the journal, is journaling out what I call proof, like the proof that you're winning, like the proof that like life has got your back, that things are happening. And so that makes you go into like the actual current day, right? So you might be at night, just like write 5 things out. This is different than gratitude, because it's really easy to, I love gratitude, don't get me wrong. But gratitude is like, I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my relationship. I'm grateful for my job. This is like what happened today. Like, what
Hmm.
little thing can you extract? And this sounds so silly, but earlier this morning, I like laid down to do a meditation, and I was laying like this, and my puppy came and like nuzzled in and like laid her head right on my chest for the whole meditation. I was like, this is heaven. Like, this is the life I wanted to create. So like,
Wow.
that's going to go in my journal tonight. Like, those little moments are more important to grab onto than the big wins. And so when you're going into that daily practice of writing down the proof that life's happening for you, but then you're circling back out to like, where am I going? Right? What's happened and where am I going? And that just keeps you on that path. I think that little 5-minute process will transform your life. Transform your
Ama-
life.
Amazing. I got to start doing that because I am the one I did a vision board and I like vision boards too. It's kind of fun,
Yeah.
but and it's pretty like I happen to fit it all in one board, most of it. It's in my
Yeah. That's
closet.
awesome.
I listen to it or I see it here and there, but you make me think I should not just, have it in my closet. I do also
Yeah.
have it in my daily planner and I do look at it
Good.
sometimes, but I think that's one thing. It was in the day to day, we forget about these things that are really
Mhm.
the why behind what we do. Like that's our compelling vision for what we're trying to create. So we should be able to revisit it, remind ourselves, oh, yes, I'm going after this. And I think
Mhm.
that's, I think it's really important to crystallize your vision and what
Yeah.
you see for yourself, either in a year, 2 years, 5 years,
Mhm.
10 years. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'll definitely include in the show notes. I did see on Amazon you're selling your planners, your journaling,
Yeah.
and all these habits you've implemented to create your success.
Yeah.
So the other thing I wanted to ask you, because I know you attended Tony Robbins UPW. I think you said you did Date with Destiny as well. Am I
Yes.
correct? Yeah,
Yeah.
which I'm hoping to do soon. And you're also going to another UPW here very, very soon. I'm curious because obviously I'm a big fan of TR as well. What has been the biggest takeaways you learned that really changed kind of your trajectory of the way you operate or the way your mindset works? Like, what has been some of the biggest takeaways you've learned in those events? Because I do believe, as you mentioned, like we should be going, like getting in the room, getting into a mastermind, getting into a seminar, getting into a podcast. Like we should be constantly finding tools that will help us along in this journey to create massive success or
Yeah.
fulfillment, whatever it looks like.
Yeah, gosh, I feel like my brain is just like Tony created it kind of,
Love
So
that.
much of my success I give him credit for because in the beginning of that like coaching journey, I went to UPW Unleash the Power Within, which is his kind of beginner 4-day. It's not really beginner, but his first the first
Initial.
one you should go to is UPW.
Yeah.
It's a 4-day event and I think the biggest thing that came out of that was breaking through the self-limiting beliefs and just, I came out of it with different belief systems. I came out of it with a different identity. I came out of it with clarity of vision, um, and a whole new level of what is possible. But he also equips you with the tools to like get yourself out of the negative mind traps that we can just downward spiral into. So you walk away with like a tool belt, of different things. He talks about like the triad, changing your thoughts,
Yeah.
changing your physicality. And so I just feel like, I mean, I could use a UPW tune up, Tony up at, every year. It's like we all
Seriously,
could.
right.
I am so excited to go back because I am at a completely different place in my life. And to go to the next level, there's new self limiting beliefs, right? There's a new identity that needs to be created. We always have to go back to the basics. I think
Mm.
as entrepreneurs, it's great to constantly like read the newest books and all the new philosophies people are coming out with, but it's like what really works is just going back and getting rerouted into what worked the first time and rehoning your habits and rehoning your practices and coming out of an event like that with new commitments to different practices and different habits and yeah, I mean, and it's so funny because the first time I went to UPW, I met a woman there that I was just talking to her like in line. It might have even been in line for the bathroom, and we were chit chatting. And she was like, "Yeah, I brought like 20 people or something." And I was like, "What do you mean you brought 20 people? Like I couldn't scrape two nickels, enough nickels together to afford the ticket." And she was like, "Well, I needed a tax write off." And I was like, "What?" Like, I
That's
can't even
hilarious.
comprehend this world you're living in. And she was so cool and so down to earth. And that was a vision. Like, that was a clarity moment for me that I was like, if I could do that, like, the impact that I would be able to just give someone in their life would be next level. And so
Amazing.
things like that give you new visions, new pieces of it's like I always say like borrow from other people when you're envious of something or excited that for something in somebody else's life, that just means you're supposed to have it in yours.
Mm.
And so you're always adding these pieces to the puzzle of your vision. And so a couple years after that, I got to like sit around the Christmas tree one night and gift like all my top coaches tickets to UPW. I'm bringing like a huge crew this time, and I just can't
Amazing.
wait. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so
So
remarkable. I think that's
so
beautiful,
excited.
and that so beautiful. And actually, let's talk about that because I know one of the powerful things he shares is identity and how that forms a lot of our beliefs and where we are actually manifesting things in our life is
Mhm.
very much tied to our identity. So, how do you feel our identity sabotages our success?
Yeah, well, that's why I had to rewrite the, identity of me just being I'm an alcoholic, which was
Mm.
so hard for me to rewrite because the fear is then death. If I don't know that I'm an alcoholic, then I will drink and I will die. I mean, my sister died of alcoholism, so I mean, it hits insanely close to home on every level. But I had to rewrite that identity because it wasn't necessarily like life-giving, so I had to work with a coach, of course, to help me through that. But something I just got certified in neurolinguistic programming,
You
and
did?
something that like I remember learning and it just blew my mind. I was like, that makes so much sense because I'm such a habit tracker person and I love tracking habits and cultivating new habits and the science of habits. And they were teaching us like so often we try to do this new habit and we stick with it for a week and then we fall off, or we stick with it for a month and we fall off. And it's like we fall off because habits will never stick unless you rewrite your identity, unless you step into a
Wow.
new identity. We have to work more on our identity than the habits. And we're
Wow.
all in our society so conditioned to like, I'm going to start drinking this much water. I'm going to start going to the gym. I'm going to do this with my nutrition. But we haven't stepped into who that person is. So we will always fail eventually on the habits. And so it's like, again, that piece of our vision, I always tell people start it out with your identity. Like, I am this. I am this. I'm a woman of integrity. I am full of vitality. I am, healthy and vibrant and fit. I am, I am, I am. And again, it's not enough just to write it down in a workshop. Like, we have to read it, see it, and feel it, and then be it. We have to be it. I was really just jazzed about this whole thought process on my way out to my retreat. And I was like Googling, and one of my friends actually has a journal called this. But I was Googling, I was like, I want a sign for my closet that says, be her now.
Ooh, yes.
Yeah. Because
Yes.
when you step into your closet and you go to get dressed, and it might be just a different pair of workout leggings. I'm not saying that I am putting on a power suit every day. I like work out in my sweats every day. But there is a shift, a subtle shift when you walk into your closet or put your makeup on in the morning, like step into that identity of who you aspire to be. And I don't even want to say who you aspire to be, like be it now. Like, eat lunch like the top coach in the company would, drive your car like the top coach, like we have to embody it for it to be attracted to us and for it
100%.
to come to fruition.
100%. By the way, I just wrote that down. If I could just put this in your sphere right now, that's a great book title. Be her
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. I
I
actually
could see
just
you writing that.
picked up a book, and I wish I knew what it was called. It was something very similar by Natasha Graziano.
Yes. Become
And
it
I didn't
or
know who Natasha Graziano was. And I was like, she's my spirit animal. Like, it embodies all of that. Like, we have to be it to become it,
yes,
And
that's
I
what it's
always
called.
tell
Be
my
it.
girls, like, you don't get what you want. Like, you never get what you want. And when we're in the energy of wanting, we're actually keeping it away from us because we're saying, I don't
I
have
lack
it.
it.
It's outside of me. I want it. The law of attraction is I have it. I am it. And that's when it comes.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, we could talk forever about
Yeah,
that.
that's a whole subject in itself, and I remember this was exactly how I felt when I was trying to work through my relationship problem, or that I kept attracting
Mhm.
and things kept unfailing. And I realized like all these things that I desired in a partner or desired in a relationship,
Mhm.
I needed to cultivate that within me
Yes.
first so that I could be in
Yeah.
alignment with what I desired. And that really is
Yes.
what it is like you need to be at the same level of what you desire. So I
Yes.
love that conversation. That's a whole thing in itself.
Yeah.
And you also gave me an aha moment because I was talking to my partner about this, and he's really been trying to help his niece and nephew develop new habits of
Mhm.
training and taking care of their health and their body. And he was doing really well, and they were super super pumped at the beginning. It's kind of like New Year's Eve,
Mhm.
you set these goals, and then what, like 85% of people fall off
Right.
their goals. It's pretty nuts, but that's exactly what you're talking about. It's the identity.
Identity.
It's not
Yeah.
necessarily the habits they're now
Mhm.
implementing. If you don't have that identity that holds the weight and the compelling why of what you're doing
Yeah.
and being connected to that, it will just dissipate. And so I'm going to actually share this with him after, because
Yes.
it makes me think that's exactly what they need to work on is
Yeah.
their identity.
And it's such an
It's so interesting.
incredible
Mhm.
It's so incredible in the parent-child relationship, and it's so frustrating too because we get so frustrated with them and we feel like it's our job, and we can't not call them out on the messy room, and you didn't do this, and you were irresponsible, and you got to be more responsible. But what we really need to be doing is speaking life over them and speaking identity over them. Like,
More
I
identity,
work
yes.
with we're in the circles of like a lot of elite child athletes, and some of our best friends like train elite, like ranked top tennis players in the world, and their kids are that in that world too, and so they'll always, from a young age, they're like, well, you're not going to make that choice because you're an elite athlete. And so, like, when you grow up with the identity of like, oh, this is just who I am, and so
Mhm.
therefore I do things differently, my habits are different. And
Yeah.
like, what an opportunity as a parent. Don't we all wish that somebody was like, Erica, this is who you are every
Yeah.
day, like just speaking that over us?
Yeah, so parents, I think that's something to meditate on is, how
Yeah.
are you helping your kids or their peers really step into that, this is how you are, like, this is how you show up, this is, what you stand for or whatever, and giving them that
Mhm.
vision, that possibility that that's already who they've become. I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful. So just to kinda wrap this up, I first wanna know what is I'm trying to think where I want to go next. Number one, your morning habit. How about your morning
Yeah.
routine? Because you're obviously a very successful entrepreneur. You're a mom. You're a wife. And you're many other things. You're a serial entrepreneur. So I want to know, like, how do you set yourself up
Mhm.
successfully in your mornings? I obviously want everybody to grab all your offerings and Amazon and your website and everything, but just you personally, how do you set up your morning routine?
Yeah, it's funny too because the planner and the journal was never it never came from a place of like, oh, I should diversify my income and create another revenue stream.
Yeah,
I have no idea how many have sold. I have no idea what the profit margins are. Like, it is truly like, I have to give this to the world. Like, they have to, if they have this, in a journal, and I give them the roadmap, like, it's going to lead them to what they want, because I coach women through that process. And when I do it behind the curtain, I see massive success. So that's truly where those came from. I never wanted to do that. And so my process is what's in there. It's exactly what I
beautiful.
do. And I think it always starts with the night before. I always ask myself the night before, like, I glance through my day because I have everything planned out, but I need to go to bed with like the framework of what I'm waking up to, the kind of day I'm waking up to. But I always ask myself, and the journal actually says this, what are the three most important things I need to do today? And, I'm usually coming from a place of like looking at my goals and vision. So, what are the three things that are going to move the needle on that? Right. But sometimes it might be my daughter's struggling right now. And the most important thing for me to do today is to spend quality time with her. Like, that is priority number one. So it shifts a little bit depending on life, but it starts the night before. And then personally, I wake up in the morning and I drink my pre-workout that energizes me, and I do my morning process while I like wait for that to kick in. So it used to just be in a journal, but now I have my book of proof, as it's called. And so I go through that process, and what that process is where is the proof from the day before that, I'm winning, because our brain picks up on every way we're failing and every way we're
Of
losing.
course.
So you're reconditioning you're rewiring your brain quite literally in this process. So five ways that I'm winning, the three most important things to do today, what I'm proud of myself for, which is key, and then what am I excited about. And so that takes 5 minutes, and then I flip to the front and I read my vision and my goals, and then I go work out, and I do not let anything into my brain in that window of time. So I will not look at social media. I will not open my emails. I will not open my text messages, because when we do that, we are quite literally giving up all control and letting the world hijack our mind and our heart. And we just start spinning with, whether it's just, what do I have to do? or negativity. And so when I go into my workout, and I don't consciously think about this, I've just thought about it over the years. When I go into my workout, I'm usually thinking about my goals, my vision. Like I'm thinking about my day and, those but I'm focused on what are those three most important things I need to do? What am I proud of myself for today? What am I excited about today? So the whole time I'm working out, I'm in a good energy. And then I step into my day that way, which is super powerful.
Beautiful. It reminds me what I did this morning that was totally opposite of that. I I looked at my phone, my emails, and one of the emails I got was from I just listed a product on Amazon for this plush doll. And any, just so
Yeah.
you know, kid products, there's so many more regulations, which is
Yes.
great if anything. But I got an email from Amazon saying you need to provide these two documents for like the safety testing and whatnot. And I had one of the documents. There's one that I have yet to get. And so it put me in like this hustle. Oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
got to get this paperwork. Otherwise they're going to remove my listing. And I
Yeah.
got into
Your
that
brain was
state. Like I
hijacked.
totally hijacked. So that's how I started my morning, which is so, it just like all this stuff that you're talking about. I think all of us need to be reminded. I mean, it
Yeah,
really is like, we know these things, right? But we
we
just need
do.
to be reminded, and that's
Yeah.
why listening to podcasts are so great, or motivational
Mhm.
videos, going to seminars, and like you said, going to UPW 10 times over again, because
Yeah.
we know these things, but sometimes we just
Yeah.
need to be reignited. So it's
Yes.
really critical, and it's awesome to have this opportunity to hear from somebody like you, just to be
Thank you.
reminded of these things.
Well, and I just want to add one little thought to that is that success does not come from some radical uprootment of your life and this tackling this mountain. It's going back to the basics that we've all heard and that we've all, read and listened to, but it's actually implementing them consistently over time that's going to create the change in your life. So it's not as hard as you think, but it is, it needs to be done consistently. Yeah.
100%. I think, consistency really is key to any sort of
Mhm.
success. And that means success even in your relationships,
Yeah.
is how you consistently show up for your partner, how you
Yeah.
consistently show you love them. And so that really applies to every area of success, and
Yeah.
even with your
For sure.
kids.
Yeah.
So, uh, so just to kind of wrap things up, because I want to honor your
Yeah.
time. So, best place for people to find you, of course, it will be in the show notes. Where can people best learn more about you and see what
Yeah.
exciting things are coming? Because I know more is coming out of
Yes.
you, that's going to be birthed
More is
out of you
coming.
soon.
Yes, more is coming, more is coming. There's always, I can't stop it from coming. It's just like my mind's always bubbling over. But moirakucaba.com, although the website's being tweaked a little bit, so it might not be as pretty as I want it to be and as laid out, as nicely as I want it to be right now. But that's the website. And then really I show up the most on Instagram. So Moira Kucaba on Instagram. I'm on TikTok and Facebook and all the things, but the website and Instagram are the best places to find me for sure.
Amazing. All right. So let me just ask you the closing question. So, if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson
Mhm.
you learned along in your journey that you just felt everybody needs to hear right now, what would that piece of wisdom
Mhm.
be? And I know you might have already spoke it, but if you could just
Mhm.
crystallize that piece of
Yeah.
wisdom.
Listen to the whisper. Listen to the whisper that you hear in your heart. It's my belief and experience that it is never wrong. And if you pursue that over your mind and your thoughts and the voices coming from the outside, it's going to lead you to a life you don't even recognize, like your wildest dreams. Yeah.
Beautifully said. So
Thank
inspiring,
you.
too. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes to all that. I love it. So much goodness, Moira. I am so appreciative of
Thank
you.
you.
I can't wait to see what's coming. I know lots of good things are in the work, and I'm just cheering you on along the way. And you're so inspiring to me. Like the
Well,
fact that I
likewise.
just realized I've literally connected with the top network marketers. And I hate using that word myself
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
know it's degraded a lot. And I
Yeah.
was in the same story as you. Like I never would want to be a network marketer,
Right.
but yet I have met some of the best people that are the top
Mhm.
earners in so many different companies. and you know some of them, but like
Yep.
it's insane. Like the top people I've met that I've interviewed on this podcast, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot to be learned from you ladies of
Oh,
what you've
thank you.
created. And really when it comes down to, it's the passion behind it, the desire to serve and make an impact. And also you're along on the journey. Like you're on
Yeah.
this journey of growth. You're learning the lessons. You're able to implement that and teach it to others with heart and soul. So it's just such an
Mm.
honor and a privilege to watch you ladies. And I'm so inspired and, you know, yeah. So
Well, thank
thank you
you.
for
Thank
all
you.
the goodness you shared today. And
Oh my gosh.
excited to see what else is going to birth from you.
Thank you, Erica. Thanks so much for having me. I so appreciate it.
Of course.